Welcome, everyone, to the Outtakes Movie Podcast. I'm Sam, and we are still going on a quest to go through every single movie ever made and objectively rank them best to worst of all time. I'm joined by a spooky crew. It's not even October yet. What have you done to us, Joe? You've thrown us up completely. Amelia, how's things?
Hello, I'm back. I'm so sorry about last week, guys. I won't be falling asleep during this one if I can help it.
I mean, we'll see it if you do. Just slowly start sliding down the chair, like. Joe, what's going on, man?
It's alright. I've not got my hat this week. I realised it looked a little bit from certain angles. Like, if you missed, for example, the beginning when I showed the Mario sign, when I was just chilling, it looked too much like the Make America Great hat.
Yeah.
Make America Great Again hat. So it concerned me that, so I'm not going to wear it.
It's an association
again.
I have with all red hats now. Whenever I see one, I'm like, oh,
That's
are
the
you?
problem,
Oh,
yeah.
no, it's fine. And Jacob,
Well, that's it, yeah.
What's going on?
Hi, I'm good. I'm also here.
Sick! So this week we are covering the VVitch, or the Witch, or however they want to call it. And that was released over here in the UK on 11th of March 2016. So before I hand off to Joe, I want to have a quick look into the world of pop culture. What was going on? So in the music charts, it's basically all just the names we know, but with songs that I don't recognize. So I've picked out 4 that I do. So at number 20, oh my god, I've not noted down any of the numbers by that one. Lol, just guess. At number 20 was Sia with Cheap Thrills. I reckon that's a pretty decent tune. So bop, I like
Cheap
it.
Thrills.
At some point after that was Stressed Out 21 Pilots. So we were in the kind of like everything sad period of music. But not quite, because above that was Love Yourself by Bieber. So he was in his, signed by Def Jam in his like house phase. And somewhere above that, I think number 4, so that's coming into my head, Lush Life, Zara Larsson. A song I actually still listen to, not on the reg, but I don't skip it. You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
Pretty fun. In the world of cinema, no, we'll do that. We'll do that last. That's relevant. In the world of video games, there was 2 games that came out on March the 11th. One of them was, do you remember that last Hitman game that was like an episodic?
Which one? The first or the second one?
The first one.
The first one.
The first episode came out, and so that was on everything. And on PC, they released the port of WWE 2K16, a game that came out just as I was getting into wrestling, and I thought, I'll try this, why not? Personal anecdote, my total playtime for that game is 174 hours. So I probably got my money's worth.
That's like, what, 3 straight weeks? What did you say, 170 something?
174 hours.
Yeah, that's over 3 straight weeks.
That's 3 straight weeks. 20. Wait.
No, it's not.
Is it a full week?
I'm getting that all wrong.
I think it might be a full week. 24, 48, 60 something.
72.
Whatever, too long on a wrestling game.
It's a lot of time.
And that's just one of them. I don't want to reveal my total for all the ones that I have bought. Anyway, in the world of cinema, it was a weird month. So starting from the actual same day, you could have either seen The Witch or Grimsby. Which,
because that Sacha Baron Cohen, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be okay, and then I just heard the bit where they like hide inside an elephant. Remember that?
I've not seen it. I refuse
Vaguely.
to watch
I
it.
didn't put myself through that.
There's a bit where they're to escape some bad guys. I think it's an elephant. They hide inside an elephant's vagina.
Right.
And then
Didn't Ace Ventura do that in the 90s?
Yes, but did Ace Ventura then get fucked by the elephant?
Oh.
So that by another elephant that came along.
No.
Then they were like, oh, elephants can mate for hours at a time. We've got to get out of here. Oh, let's help this elephant. So they jacked off an elephant while inside. Sorry to bring the tone down this early on.
Peak comedy.
Fucking hell.
So you could have seen Grimsby. If you'd have waited a little bit further in the month to the 18th, you could have seen Allegiant, the Divergent sequel / threequel. I don't know how many they made of those.
Yeah.
One of them.
I'd watched half the first one, and then it was one of the few films I actually zoned out while at the cinema. Like, I was watching with my mates, and I was like, this is so shit. I physically cannot bring my attention to watch it anymore. So I zoned out.
I think that's fair.
It was. Yeah.
And if you were still on the edge about watching The Witch by the March 25th, you could have maybe seen that, or My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2.
Nice.
Good God.
A good variety of films there.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
weird month, weird time. Regardless, the movie we're talking about today is The Witch, none of those. Joe, take it away.
Like I've told you guys before we started, I've got some notes. But there's a lot to talk about the film anyway. The film itself, there's not much story, but we'll get into it. It's good. Yeah, so The Witch, or as the poster writes it, it's the Vitch with two V's making a W. I think there's a reason for that. I feel like it's something to do with the folklore or something, but I forgot to research it.
Well, I think
Let's do
I
a Google.
It says.
a maybe answer for this. Maybe. So, like, you know how we say W for a W?
Sure.
Right. It doesn't really look like that. It looks like two V's, like, stuck together.
Yeah, they
in
say that
some
in
languages,
German. Double V.
Yeah, like in French, they say double V, which is double V.
Mm-hmm.
That might have something to do with
That
it.
might have been, yeah.
I don't know, but... Yeah,
It could have been that's how they wrote it back in the day.
that's also
In the
true.
1600s, yeah, so...
I found it in a Google.
You Googled it.
Oh, well, I mean, that's what I mean. I didn't Google
Put
it.
him to
so.
shame.
He used the double V spelling of The Witch because the large typeface was often used in the period writings. Quote, I thought it was nice and transportative. That word.
Transformative?
Well, there you
That's
go.
the one.
Cool.
So yeah, it's called the Witch with two V's, a New England folktale. That's the. I wouldn't say it's the full title, but it's the title that's on the poster. So
Yeah.
So what you said, this came out. It came out initially in 2015, and it was Robert Eggers' feature directorial debut. So before this, he'd worked on a few short films. One of them was like a retelling of Hansel and Gretel, and it was in black and white, and it was like a silent film.
Okay.
And then he did another one, which was like I forgot what it was about. I think it was about Edgar Allan Poe or something. It was about him and stuff. That was also like the whole thing is all of his films are like historical films. So he's never done anything. I mean, as far as I could see, and everything he's directed has always been historical piece. So I mentioned it last week. The last film he did was The Lighthouse, which came out last year with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, which I've heard is very good. But kind of between him doing his short films and him doing The Witch, he was doing a lot of production design stuff. So that's kind of where a lot of his expertise kind of came from. But yeah, so a lot of his films based kind of on like folklore and stuff like that anyway. Okay, so the cast itself, right? Actually, you know what? No. Before we do cast, what we'll do is I want to talk briefly about that. I'm going to maintain our kind of tradition of talking about the budget. So if you already know what it is, then, you know.
I have no idea.
No clue.
No, say it.
So, okay, well, guess budget first then. What do we reckon the budget is?
Oh, I
for this
reckon
film?
it's very
Or budget
low.
was for this film?
I'm going to say... I got two numbers. I'm going to be risky. I'm going to say 6 million. My other number was going to be 11, but I'm going to say 6.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's got to be around that, like less than 20, I reckon, almost guaranteed. But, no, 7.
See, the
Well,
number
that's really low.
12 spoke to me for some reason. Maybe it might be the devil himself, but I'm going to go for the number 12 million.
Whispering in your ear.
So, you all, like, overestimated just how much it costs to make a film set in one location in the middle of the woods. The estimated budget for this film was $4 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, okay, so keeping that in mind, I want you to guess how much it made in the US opening weekend.
Okay. So it's horror. It's in... Wait, actually, you say US. My release date was in March
just
for
US.
the UK. Is there a different US release date? Like, did it come out in October,
So-
like 2015 or something? Did it come out appropriately timed?
So this originally was a Sundance film originally,
Okay.
and he won the Best Director for it. I don't know whether I think it might have came out in America first. Maybe. Let me double check. This is something I should have done before.
If it was October, then I can see it doing pretty well. Because
Yeah.
I mean, how many other horror films came out around this time? Probably, I don't know.
I think the demand for it in springtime actually it just goes down.
Yeah. It also seemed a lot spookier than it was.
Yeah.
So seeming and being advertised as being spooky is more important for a horror film really than actually. Although word of mouth, I guess, once it's out.
So it was at the Sundance Film Festival in January of 2015.
Okay.
So I don't know whether that's so in the US. It came out. I don't know. Let me have a look.
I'm gonna say it at least made its money back though.
Oh yeah, I don't think it lost
Surely.
money.
Maybe struggled to with a budget of $4 million.
So it came out to general audiences on the 19th of February 2016.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that is a kind of weird time. Okay, I'm gonna say it didn't make enormous amounts of money. I reckon. Well, for a movie, it made its budget back. I'm gonna be optimistic. 15 mil.
I would have said around 20.
See, if we're talking opening weekend...
Oh shit! Is that what it was? Just opening weekend.
Yeah, just opening weekend in the US.
$250,000.
Just the US.
I reckon it was pretty low.
Mine was only 6 mil. I reckon they made money, but for an opening weekend, especially say for a horror film, people need to know what it's like before they go see it.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna go 6.
Yeah, probably 4 or 5.
I'm genuinely going below a mil. I'm 250,000. That's what I'm sticking to.
Wow.
Wait, who was... So, Jacob, you were 6.
No, I was 6.
Oh, was it Amelia that was 6? What were you, Jacob?
4 or 5, I can't decide. We'll say 4.5.
Amelia was the closest. Amelia was the closest.
Hey.
And she underestimated. So, in the opening weekend in the US, it made just over $8,800,000.
Very good. Very impressive.
That's pretty good. That's not bad
So
going.
it made double the budget just in the opening weekend. And then the overall gross in America was $25 million.
Okay, sure.
Very good.
And then worldwide, they made over $40 million.
Wow.
Very good.
So
Yeah.
off a $4 million investment, I think they did pretty well on this film.
Yeah.
They were rolling in it after
But this is the
I'm not
thing,
surprised
you
they
don't
let
need
him.
to have this ridiculously high budget
Well, yeah.
crap. A small suspenseful film that's made on a shoestring budget which just looks good. It's just
Well,
as
this is
good.
it. The whole film is pretty much set. Well, the whole film is set in the homestead anyway. Probably about 90% of it. The bit at the very beginning where they're at the colony, I reckon they just went to maybe one that like a museum or something. One that they've recreated it for historical kind of I reckon they just went there, made it look a bit dirty or whatever for the day.
They don't even shoot it on wides. You don't even really get much of a chance to see that set.
Exactly, yeah. Literally, it's a one street, and you go through the gate. I reckon you just turn the camera a little bit more. You got a fucking car park to your left or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It'd be really.
Krispy
I'm not
Kreme.
surprised it had a small. Yeah, literally, yeah. Fucking hot dog guy handing out things to the colonists and stuff. But yeah. So what I'll do is then I'll go briefly kind of through the actors because there's really not a big cast here at all. So the big name in this is Anya Taylor-Joy, who plays Thompson. This was one of her earliest roles. I think this is the film that made... I mean, I think she was a model before this anyway, but I think this is the film that made her kind of quite famous. Because obviously after this, she was in Split, and Split's not so good sequel, Glass.
Yeah.
She was actually in Peaky Blinders for a bit as well. And she was in that film I think came out last year called Emma.
Yeah, she was.
I think it was a
Jane
retelling
Austen.
of something. Yeah, Jane.
If it ever
she's in that.
comes out, she'll be Magic in New Mutants. But
Oh, sure.
depending
I
if
mean,
we
I
ever
don't know.
see that.
Well, yeah, and then she's also in Edgar Wright's new film as well. Last Night. Is it Last Night in Soho?
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in that. And She's also going to be in Robert Eggers' next film as well, which is a film called The Northman, and it's a Viking film, so that's fun.
Oh. Pretty cool.
Man loves his history, you know what I mean? So Ralph Ineson plays the dad, William.
Oh, the guy from all those Dacia adverts, or Dacia.
Yeah.
That's where I know his voice.
Yep.
He was in The Office as well.
I didn't even know that.
David Brent's
he's in
mate.
Game of Thrones.
Oh, he was,
sure.
yeah.
Probably.
He's gotta be.
Yeah,
Do you know, I always get him
much.
confused with Jimmy Nail for some reason. The Geordie guy, Jimmy Nail. You'll recognize his face if you Google him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, this guy, Ralph Ineson, has been in so much. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy very briefly as a Ravager. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Okay. He was the pilot. He was in a couple episodes of that, that show, that Chernobyl show that came out last year or the year before. Yeah. He was, I think, 2 episodes of that. He played a First Order general in The Last Jedi. And he was in Game of Thrones, he was in The Walking Dead, he was in Harry Potter as well. He's in the last 3 Harry Potters. As someone called... Right? He played someone called, and I could butcher this name, I don't know. Amicus Caro.
That sounds like a bad guy name.
I feel. Do you know what? I need to rewatch him because my knowledge is absolutely crap of them at those films.
Do you though? Do you?
I mean, he was in the last 2, and he was in the one about the prince and the Half-Blood Prince, or whichever that one was. He was in that one, but he didn't have a surname in that one apparently.
Like Beyonce.
He just often plays the guy. Yeah, he's just Beyonce. Yeah.
He just was Beyonce.
He plays Beyonce in Harry Potter. That's it. Yeah. He's just that guy who has a thick Yorkshire accent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That one. He's like proper talking low, like proper. Not Sean Bean, but the other one kind of thing. Anyway, and the mum is played by Kate Dickie, so she plays Catherine, and she's kind of similar to like our boy Ralph.
She's been in Game of Thrones as well.
She's kind of in lots.
She has been in Game of Thrones.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. She's been in Game of Thrones as well.
She's thingy in the Eyrie, and I hate her.
Yeah.
She's just so annoying.
Well, yeah, she's been in Game of Thrones as well. She's also in Prometheus. She's also a member of the First Order in The Last Jedi. I think she's one of those people at the computers. And then she's just in a bunch
breakout
of
role.
She's in an episode of Peaky Blinders as well, apparently. But and then the rest of the cast are just kids. So
I think that those 2 listings are definitive proof that the British to American TV and film industry is just the same 12 people going in cycles forever.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like people who made Peaky Blinders like, oh man, hey people making Game of Thrones, we had this really good guy who played a gangster in our film and on one of our episodes. You should have him as a knight. I mean, not anymore because Game of Thrones is over. But we're talking 5 years ago. This is back in 2015. Anyway, okay, so yeah, right. We'll talk about the story now because the story's really. It's easy to condense because, nothing major really happens. It's all kind of different stuff. Okay, so the story takes place in the 1630s and it's set in the Plymouth Colony, which is the colony they leave at the beginning anyway. So it's not technically set in the Plymouth Colony. But any American listeners would know... Well, they'll know the colonies, I assume, because you learn it in school. But for us Brits, who aren't taught about it, even though it's far more interesting than the fucking Tudors is... I'll give you a bit of background on it. So the Plymouth Colony was the second colony to be established in North America, and it's in Massachusetts. So it's kind of in films when you hear about the Mayflower and Plymouth Rock and all that stuff, that's this colony. And around when this film is set is when they would have started to settle in Boston and stuff as well. So there was a few towns and homesteads. It's in that Massachusetts, what is now Massachusetts anyway. So the film begins with the family being banished from the colony over religious dispute. The family's Puritans, I think. Are they families of Puritans, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or is it the way around? I think the Puritans, yeah. And they go off and they build the house next to this dodgy looking forest. Where there's rumours that witches live inside and stuff like that. So the mother has another baby, and before the baby can be baptized, a witch steals it and kills it, and uses it to make this like witch
body lotion.
This witch.
Is
Yeah,
that what she's rubbing on herself? Just dead baby
Yeah,
juice?
it's like an ointment or something. It's like a witch ointment or something. I did Google it, but I couldn't actually
Simply
find
B
a
for
definitive
witches.
thing. Yeah,
Simply
literally. It was
baby.
like some... Oh. Well, that's it, like, because there's obviously lots of records of different, like, witch ointments or whatever, so I couldn't actually find what this one's meant. I think it's just meant to be a witch ointment. She's like, hey, the devil's cool. Yeah, boy. Let's kill babies. Whoop. But yeah, so obviously the family's devastated by the lack of child, and kind of the tension rises between it. You know, the farm's just a bit shit. It's, you know, all the crops aren't growing; they're all dying.
Yeah.
They can't catch, you know, they can't catch any animals because they're shit at hunting. They're just having a bad time overall. So then at one point, the youngest kid, there's this dispute about the mother having this like cup that she cherishes, and it goes missing. We find out the dad sold it, but the mum blames the oldest daughter, is it Thomason?
Thompson. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole big thing, and then the second child, Caleb, he's like, oh man, they're blaming my sister. He's got like a weird... There's a moment really early in the film where he has like a weird... He looks down like his sister, she's sleeping, and it's a bit weird because it's like, what are you thinking about there, young boy?
He probably checks out her titties later on.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really strange.
There's a lot of that stuff in this movie where it's like... I don't know, like... It's just stuff I've seen in other horror films a lot, but in those films it's usually like a direct point of what's going... Like, there's that one, I can't remember what it's called, but it's about the kids that they get locked in an office, not an office, in the attic by like an evil step grandma or something, right? But two of them like go through puberty in the attic, and they like brother and sister, and they sort of, you know, start getting it on, right? But that's like a core, all the weird stuff you see them sort of doing before that bit, it's because that's what the movie's about, right? Like being like locked into that space. Whereas here, it's not really about that. Like at the start, there's a big long shot of them going off away from the colony that goes on for ages with spooky little... And it reminds me a lot of like the opening shot of The Shining. But in that, you've got like... Yeah. It's long, and with creepy music, but you've got like this continuous camera movement going along following Bumblebee up to the hotel, and like you're being dragged with him. You know, that's what all the film scholars say. It's like
that would have been a very different movie if that actually was Bumblebee.
It's a twist at the end. He fucking just... With this, you're just sort of watching it for ages, and you're like, okay, I feel like I get what you're doing, and I know you've seen that movie. It's not the same.
So the thing with The Shining is, I watched an interview with Robert Eggers, and he was like, someone in the interview, she was like, oh, do you like horror films? And essentially he's like, nah, not really. And he's like, oh, but I like The Shining. And he's like, basically what he says is, when he watches The Witch, he doesn't like watching it because he feels, because of how much he likes The Shining, how does he describe it? He basically describes The Witch as it smells like The Shining.
It does.
That's
no, he's right.
And he's like, oh, whenever I watch it, it's just I can see whether I've been influenced by The Shining, and I'm like, ugh.
If you take out, I was thinking about this earlier, and it was something that I was like, originally I was just thinking about it, like, oh, would that have been a better movie? And then I was like, oh no, wait, fuck, it's just The Shining. How much cooler would The Witch have been if they talk about witches, but there is no witches. You never see any witches. The kid just starts acting weird, and they all start blaming it on a witch, and one of them might be a witch because they're isolated. And then I was like, at that point, I was like, oh, that's The Shining, isn't it? Just take out the witch stuff. It's they're isolated and they go crazy and they start trying to kill each other. That's The Shining. That's this movie.
That's kind of also the basis for the lighthouse as well, apparently. Because you just get trapped in this lighthouse.
Watch more horror movies, Roger.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. So, the thing with this film is he takes a lot of... I'm going to talk about a bit later. what little information on it I have, he did a lot of research into this, like a lot of research. Like, obviously, at the very end of the film, it says, this has been taken from like journals and stuff.
Yeah.
But like the way I was gonna get a section of the script, but I ran out of time before I could find one. But essentially, the way he writes his scripts, he everything that he found in his research, he pushes into the film. So that's how he tries to create the folklore, is like he researches every single aspect of it. So a lot of things like that, like the bit where Caleb has a bit of a weird moment where he checks out his sister, or the bit just little bits like when she's milking the goat and there's blood and stuff like that. It's little moments like that where he's put it into the film because the people in that time, that was like a daily occurrence.
Right.
I mean, not the the goat blood milk thing, but I imagine the sense that, like, how much isolation that these people would have been in. Mm-hmm. Like, they've sailed across the world to this, like, unknown land, and I can imagine they're a bit messed up in the head, having to deal with all this stuff anyway. So, especially if you're isolated, you can probably be like, the kid's like, I've not got anyone to look at, so I'm going to look at my sister because I'm a weirdo. It's little things like that.
Not got any access to ye olde Pornhub. What am I going to do?
Yeah, literally. So he's I think it's just little things like that. He, like, maybe read it in a story or something.
Yeah.
Or read a journal where a guy was like, my sister looked a bit good. And he was like, that would be an interesting thing for, like, a one scene. I think that's how he structured it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because there's little things like that throughout the whole film.
I was going to say, his script is very much like reading a storybook.
Yeah.
Like, I've got it up here, so if I just read, like, a tiny bit.
It's a lot of description.
So, it's just, like, internal. The witch's hovel, night, darkness, it is almost impossible to see. Passing through the shadows, extremely old and bent hands with long, dirty talons briefly catch the firelight. They place Samuel upon the centre of a crude table. Overwhelmed by the dark, he senses the danger. His delicate baby fingers open and close reflexively, grasping at the air. Yeah, and that's just part of a very long...
Yeah, that's just that scene. That's just that scene where she takes the baby and kills it in, like, 30 seconds. Because he does all this research, he likes... One of the things that he does as a director, I've seen him, like, talk about in, like, interviews and stuff, he likes to create, like his films about atmosphere. Yeah. So with this being a horror film, he didn't go into it being like, this is a horror film, people are going to come out of this and they're going to be terrified. It was like... Because he grew up in Massachusetts as well, he grew up around this area. So he was trying to capture the kind of atmosphere that growing up in an area like that had, whatever, yeah. So a lot of his film it's I wouldn't necessarily call it, because I mean, you guys see it, it's not scary, is it? It's not. It's just, like, tense, but there's atmosphere and stuff like that. That's what he was striving for. And that's, birthed, like, purely from doing all this research. And when he was doing, like, the dialogue and shit, he had, like, books on how people used to, like, structure the sentences and stuff like that. So
I really like the dialogue in this, actually.
It's very poetic.
I did not enjoy it.
Really?
It took me a while to get into it, because I was watching and I was like, hang on, so when they say that you're not happy, you're happy when they're not on the... Wait, so it took me too long to work out what the sentence was actually saying, so in the end I just put subtitles on. That's fair. So that while I was reading it, I could understand it quicker. I don't know, but that was just me. Yeah. It just took me way too much brain power to actually work out what was going on. But maybe I'm just a fucking doofus. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's like being exposed to, like, the amount of shit like that thing. And I also think individual tolerances of it. I mean, I remember being in... No, actually, scratch that. I remember having to do, like, Shakespeare back in English and stuff. And as an adult now, I'm quite interested in Shakespeare. I wouldn't mind picking up a book and reading some of his plays. When I was a teenager, there was no way. I couldn't stand it. I could not stand it. And the entire rest of the class couldn't either. And I don't want to just put that down to an age thing. I think it is just like a tolerance thing. For me, with this movie, it worked to deliver that folk tale thing.
Yeah.
And gave it a particular feel, which I appreciated. But I totally get where you're coming from.
It did make it feel more folky than just historical.
Yeah.
We can watch something historical and they'll speak like how we do now. Like the language and syntax will be the same as we do now. But it would just feel like, I don't know, like history, like more, this is what happened, these are true historical events. If you make it all folky, it makes it all a bit more mystical and magical and spooky, I suppose. Did get that vibe, definitely. But for me personally,
that's the thing.
Those up.
Like with this film, it proper feels like a folktale film. Like it that's what he strived for, and he proper managed to get it right. Like just the atmosphere of it and the way they speak and all this different stuff, that it proper feels like a folktale film. It doesn't feel like a historical. Well, I mean, it does because it's obviously in the past,
like
but
factual.
It doesn't feel like he's trying to be like, oh, this is what the time was like. It's like, oh, I'm telling a story, and this story just so happened to be more prominent in this time, so we'll set it then.
It's like
that's
this,
the kind
really
of...
quickly, sorry, there's like you were saying, Jacob, about how certain things are said. For, like this sentence I've been looking at for a while. No ease to rise on a grey day, the devil holds fast to your eyelids.
Which just basically means like, oh, you're sleeping.
Oh, it's not good.
Right?
Yeah, rising while it's all grey and horrible. Oh, I'm very
don't
tired.
bother getting up. It's shit day.
Yeah, it's just, it works well, but it took me. When I went to go put the subtitles on, I was intrigued to see if there were going to be 2 tracks, one for like modern English and one for what they were literally saying, but there wasn't. It was just literally what they're saying, because what they're saying isn't
like multiple
not English anymore.
Stuff.
It's just old-fashioned. But, yeah.
Well, one of the things I'll talk about later is the way he created the dialogue. 'Cause it says at the end, doesn't it, that he did it from journals and stuff. But the way he did it was he literally went through the journals and like lifted sentences from the journals and put them into the script. And then once he'd done that, he had the whole script, he then like went through them all and started changing them to make it his own words essentially, but using the same kind of structure and stuff that the journals had. Plus he had like books and research and stuff on like how they spoke anyway. But yeah, so what were we up to in the story? I can't remember. Oh yeah, the farm was shit was going down, and then so the oldest brother, there's too many kids. They need to get a TV. But like, so yeah, the oldest brother, which is the second child, the kid Caleb.
Yeah.
He obviously overhears him, chatting shit about his sister. So he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get some food, so they can't be angry at her anymore." Because he knows at this point that it's his dad who did it, and he's like, "Oh, my dad's a prick," blaming it on my sister. So he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna find some food." Then Thomason catches him in the morning, done doing the horse, and she's like, "Oi, where you going, bitch?" And he's like, "Gonna go find some food, bitch." And I mean, obviously, this isn't how they spoke back then. And essentially, they go into the forest, and they end up getting split up. And Caleb finds himself. He basically makes his way to like the witch's hut, and the witch comes out, and she's being all seductive or whatever to a child.
I hated this. There was weird. No need. See, like, I could get from context what was going to happen. I would have been fine. I would have known if they'd have got close and then cut. That does a better job. Yeah. There was no need to shoot that. It was really uncomfortable.
Like, it's really, the thing of it is, watching it's really
sorry, I just realised I cut you off.
But like,
she kisses him. That's the bit I'm saying there was no need to shoot.
Yeah, she kisses him. It's really weird. But I think the fact that it's uncomfortable watching it is the point. Like, you're like, that's a child, and she's kissing a child. But
they needed to shoot that. What I'm saying is,
like,
Roger Eggerson's a pedo. That's what I'm saying. No, I'm not. Don't sue me, Roger. Please don't sue me. But there was no need.
Because...
Like,
Is this because like his sin is temptation?
I think
He's a good Christian boy.
Might be.
That's what I was like when I first had sex. I was just yelling, sin, sin, sin!
Mine is the devil's work!
Well, like, I think that's the thing, because it's really uncomfortable to watch. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, this is really comfortable to watch, but like...
You cut off then it's
you don't like...
like
You're watching The Witch, and you're like, oh god, she's such a fucking pedo or whatever. And you just then hate the witch, but that's the point because it's the bad guy. But I don't know. It's like you said, if they cut it off at the same time, I would have been.
You know what's going to happen though, and I think with horror, and like being uncomfortable, the best thing you can do as a director is make your audience think about something they don't want to think about, and you can do that without having to like shoot the dodgy shit. I don't know.
Well, that's it.
Like in Alien, they employ a lot of rape imagery to make you feel uncomfortable, but they do it through like the facehugger props and stuff in their design. They don't literally show you the act of that, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's it. Like if they, like you said, if they cut it off, I wouldn't have been like, I can't believe they didn't go through with it.
Fucking pussy's not showing that. Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. Like, grow some balls.
Can't do anything, like, can we, anymore?
Damn snowflakes. Can't do anything these days. But, yeah, like, it was really uncomfortable of a scene. You knew what was going to happen. And, I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, he just disappears for a few hours anyway. And the dad finds Thomason in the woods, and it progresses until eventually Caleb returns, and he's all naked, and he's all ill, and he's all delirious or whatever, and he's just been cursed by the witch. But like we know as the audience that that's what's happened, obviously, because we've seen the witch. We know the witch exists from the beginning of the film. And yeah, he's just being cursed, and they put him in the bed, he's sweating loads, and he's talking like devil talk, and he's spitting satanic bars and all that jazz. And they pray for him, but he dies anyway, and he dies like saying how much he loves Jesus and stuff like that to try and like save his soul, but man's been possessed by the devil, so rip. It's all this kind of like works, like all this happens like amongst each other, but I've split them up. So Caleb dies, but while that's happening, I missed a part off at the end of the film. So earlier in the film, when the farm bit going to shit, there's a scene with Thomason getting some water, and her two youngest children are like messing about, and she's all like, "Oh, you fucking stop that! Stop messing about!" And she basically, to try and scare them into listening to her, she tells them, "Yeah, I'm a witch. I'm the witch. I'm the wicked witch. Whatever. Like, haha, I'm gonna curse you. Whatever. If you unless you stop messing about." But then that comes and bites her in the ass in this scene, because then the two kids are like, "Oh, Thomason said she was a witch before," and then the parents turn on Thomason, and then Thomason.
I didn't understand any of
the
this,
whole
right?
goat thing.
So dumb. I mean, I don't know how much people believe their kids back in the day, but you can't trust a thing a child says well,
this is it.
Well, I think she fucked herself over, right? Because if she'd have gone, when they said like, "Oh, she's a witch," if she'd have gone, "Oh, Mum, look, I told him I was a witch earlier to spook him, I'd have been fine." But she doesn't say that. She says, "They conspire against me!"
Lies. Yeah, that's true.
The thing, though.
So, sorry, by the way, Jacob, if I talked over you earlier, you were lagging out. I didn't know if you were talking.
I figured I was lagging out. You'd all frozen.
Right.
All right. Well, you got to think, right, at the time, they believed that witches were like a real thing. Like, they were like, the devil is constantly trying to like possess us, and we need to be praying, we need to like have our loyalty to God, or the devil's going to get us. So I imagine you get accused of being a witch straight away. Well, I mean, like all the whole like Salem witch trials and stuff. You get accused of being a witch, they're not going to like look into it. They're like, "Shit, she's a witch."
I've seen.
Burn
I've
it,
seen.
you know what
Sorry,
I mean?
I've got no head. I remember.
I was about to say,
Which-
sorry, I've got no
which-
head.
Which? Well, that's it. That's what was going to happen. The dad was going to get on the phone and he was going to be like, "Oi, I'm going to come through the door." That's how the film should have ended.
The trials were such bullshit as well. It's like,
Well, yeah,
if you
that's
die,
it, yeah.
you're not a witch. If you don't die, you're a witch. It's like, I'll
Set
be
her on
dead.
fire. If she dies, then she's a witch. But like it. Well, that's it. That's the whole thing. So like, saying like these kids being like, "Oh, she said she was a witch." The parents are gonna be like, "Shit, you know, possessed by the devil, whatever." But then they switch the mind. They change the mind straight away when she's like, "Oh, but those kids have been talking to the goat," and they're like, "Oh shit, so they're witches then? They've made the deal with the devil." And it's a big old switcheroo. But anyway, the dad, our boy William, he's a bit confused about which of his kids have made a pact with the devil and which haven't. So he just locks them all in the goat shed. And he's like, "Stay there, let me figure things out. You just chill in there for a bit."
Okay, I don't know how I did this right, but I missed every instance of the goat before this scene. I don't know why. I don't know how, right? I was clearly always just looking away whenever the goat was on screen. So the first time I saw the goat was this brilliant like juxtaposition where William's like, he's like praying and it's an intense close-up, he's sweating and he's heavy breathing, the music's going, and then it suddenly goes, boom, and there's a shot of the twins next to this goat, and I've never fucking seen the goat before, and it's just chilling, and it's this happy, cute little goat. That goat saved this movie for me. Honestly, it's like this is great. I'm a goat. I'm being looked after. There's all these interesting people around me. I'm getting fed between takes. Sometimes I'm getting fed during takes so that I go off screen at the right time. I'm a goat. This is the best.
See,
it didn't look threatening.
it's funny you said that,
I know
actually.
what it's like symbolizing, but it just looked cute and happy to be there.
So it's funny you said that actually because
It really
the
did.
whole tone was just trash. It's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, look, goat, happy goat." Yay.
I couldn't come back. I was too focused on
So
the goat.
the thing with the goat, I was watching like a bunch of different interviews with Robert Eggers, and out of all of the animals in the film, he said that the goat was the only one that didn't want to be there. So all the dog and the horses and that hare and stuff, all, cooperated. They wanted to be in the film, They were happy to be, Hollywood stars, on the screen, whatever. Apparently the bit with the crow, it was so well behaved that they got it in one shot. Nice and perfect. The
Nice.
goat, on the other hand, was called Charlie.
My guy.
They originally had 3 goats, and they eventually only had 1 because they couldn't get the other 2 to do the stuff. And Charlie was very... I can't remember what exactly he said, but he would sometimes just chill and sit down and do what he's meant to do, and other times he'd just go a bit mad. And apparently the guy who plays William, Ralph Ineson, Charlie actually put him in the hospital for a day, one of the days, because he kicked off. Because I don't know whether it was when they were filming the scene later on where he dies, but yeah, the goat put him in a hospital.
Actually
for a day,
rammed him.
apparently.
Bloody
Man.
hell.
Yeah, apparently. In the interview, he didn't say why he put him in the hospital, but yeah, he put him in the hospital. So yeah, the goat did not want to be
You
there.
can imagine them being like, right, listen, Ralph, right. Are you okay with us actually trying to get it to ram into you? Like, it's not actually going to, stab you, but, should we give it a go and make it look as realistic as possible? It's actually fucking impaled him, and he's just...
And he's like, "Oh, I'm from Yorkshire, I get pierced by goats all the time." Yeah, let's do it, man, I'll do it. Oh, man. But yeah, there you go. So, there you go. So, Charlie the goat, or as he's known in the film, is Black Phillip. Yeah, he was not...
I still love that goat.
He was
I
not a
still
happy
love
goat.
that goat.
But yeah, he's a cute goat, and he's chilling all the time. But yeah, they get locked in the goat shed with him, and they wake up in the middle of the night, and there's some old woman drinking his milk, and it's really weird and stuff. And then the next morning, the dad comes out, and his goat shed is fucked up, and he's all pissed off because he lost the receipt from B&Q, so he can't get a new one. And obviously, 2 of his kids are missing. I can't remember what happened to the goat. Is the goat dead? What happened to the goat?
No, so the
Nah,
goat...
the goat-
No, the
has
goat's
to
not
go with
dead,
him.
'cause
Yeah, the
it-
goat comes back and has a go
Oh
with
yeah,
him.
the goat kills him, doesn't it? And she wakes up just in time to witness that. She's like, fuck, the goat killed my dad, rip. And all those logs fall on him, and he's like, fuck. And then the mum comes out, she's like, oh, you witch, you've killed my husband, you've taken my kids. So, it's, shit's going down. So Thomason, in self-defense, has to kill a mum with a cleaver. Just nice horror film, classic horror film stunt. So with the whole family dead, Thomason goes and talks to the goat, and she's like, fucking, talk to me now, you bitch. And then the goat's like, ayo, I am actually Satan, lol, tricked your whole family. And she's like, you silly Satan, I knew it was you the whole time. And he's like, hey, well, you've not got a family anymore, so how about you just sign your name in my book? And she's like, got you. So she signs his name, and then he's got his cloak on, she's walking around her. He's like, hey, take your clothes off, because you're mine now. He's really weird, and, he's the devil. So then she goes into the forest and finds like a coven in the woods where they're all, they're performing, what was it? I found out what it was called. It was called a witch's sabbath around a bonfire. And, they're all naked and they're all doing the thing around it. And she starts laughing and she starts floating away. Because she's a witch now.
You know what that reminded me of?
What, which bit?
It reminded me of the end of Beetlejuice. Where she starts flying and having a good time.
Well, that's it. She's happy now. She's a witch.
Yeah, she loves it. She loves flying and having a good time, doing witch step with her
with all my
buddies.
sisters, just like with our fanny flaps, like blowing in the wind, dancing with the bonfire, bro.
Yeah,
every woman's dream.
She doesn't have to worry about praying no more. She's already signed her soul over. Who gives a fuck? She's like, fuck that, man. I'm the devil's bitch now, man. Devil becomes like a rapper or something, But yeah, and then at the very, very end of the film, it comes up, directed and written by Robert Eggers, and then after that, it says, he gives us a little message saying that the film was inspired by folk tales and fairy tales and written accounts of historical witchcraft, and that a lot of the dialogue came directly from those sources. But yeah, so a lot of my stuff I've said after this, I've already said. Yeah. So, like I said before, the way he structured the actual dialogue was through, like, written accounts and taking all the pieces from it and just general research and stuff like that. Right, so let's have a look.
Excuse me.
What have I got here? This is where I ran out of notes before. So, but yeah, okay. So, I'll talk briefly about the actual folklore that inspired it. I mean, how much do you guys know about like witchcraft and stuff like that?
I'm gonna say bare minimum.
Yeah, next to none.
Yeah, I don't know a lot. So the whole Salem witch trials, that isn't actually this. So Salem witch trials were way later on anyway.
They're way fucked up as well. I don't know if you guys have done research on it, but like...
Yeah, they were well messed up. So the way it used to be is, it was like... so some of the historical accounts that he did in research for this film weren't people just blaming like women for doing stuff. It was women like blaming themselves and being like, I'm a witch. And it was cases of, like, for example, the example Robert Eggers gives in the interview I watched was he read a thing about a woman who, she killed her child, and she was like, oh, I'm a witch, because I've got this desire to do it again kind of thing.
Right.
But that's just, it's things that what we know today as being like depression and like
morning sickness,
homicidal tendencies and things, yeah. But back then they were like, oh, I must be a witch because I have these feelings. It's the devil's got me. And that's where a lot of the stuff is.
Yeah.
But then obviously there's the whole mass hysteria of the witch trials. I think, was it in the 1690s, I think it was, which is way after this anyway. I think it was 1692, I think. Or 3. One of them two. And plus Salem's way up the coast anyway, so this isn't where it was anyway. But this is kind of the start of that. And then I think the whole witch trial started because was like a husband and a wife accusing each other or something of
she
doing
was
it,
accused,
and then that everyone...
she accused him, and then everyone was like, well, you must both be witches, and then it was a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, literally, it was... If anyone did anything, if that was slightly, witchish, I guess. If someone breathed wrong or whatever, they'd be like, oh, she's a witch! And then those guys would appear sorry, I've gotten ahead, and they're like, witch, that's where thingy. But yeah, so that's a lot of the accounts that he had, when it said historical accounts of witchcraft, a lot of them come from that kind of era, where everyone was being blamed for witchcraft, left, right, and center, So, okay, that's as far as my notes go. The film's good. It's got good folk stuff. So this is my question, though. I said I was going to end with a question to give us kind of a bit of a discussion, right? So, obviously, the film is kind of a historical horror film. So I was thinking about this the other day. I think it'd be an interesting thing to ask you guys. If you had the chance, right, what time period would you guys set a horror film in? Like, what points in history do you think would make a really good horror?
Ooh.
And this is what I mean, you're going to have to think about it. It wasn't just a question you can answer straight away. You're going to have to give it a sec to think about.
Okay. Define my limitations on horror.
It could be, it depends. It can be whatever.
Does a slasher count as a horror?
It can be, yeah.
Okay.
If you want to make
there's different types of horror, isn't there?
Okay.
Well, yeah, it just depends, because there'd be different times for different... So, you want to make, a medieval horror, you could do a slasher because it's knights slashing each other open kind of thing. But then with something like this, I don't reckon you could do a slasher horror in this time setting.
Nah.
In, the 17th century.
See, a part of me...
That's it.
A part of me kind of likes the, setting of it. The kind of the 80s, so it's modern, but not quite modern enough where they can all just talk to each other instantly. There's still enough recognisable, cars and lights and stuff that can flicker, and electrical bits that can be tampered with. But it's not modern enough that they can solve the problem more easily by just, Googling it or, phoning each other when they need help. So I kind of like that, but it's also already been done quite a lot.
Yeah.
Or, modernish horrors,
that's
anyway.
The thing. That's the thing with it. The way it worked was because obviously we didn't grow up in the 80s, but a lot of its fan base were aimed at people who. It would have been the same group of people who not only read the book when it came out, but grew up and were young in that time anyway. Yeah, so I think that's why that kind of horror time period works, because they would have had experiences like that. Because everyone had experiences when they were younger of horror stuff, seeing ghosts or whatever, stuff like that. But yeah, the 80s is a really good one.
Last 50 odd years, maybe, I think. Not before the 1900s, I think would work. So yeah, 60s or 70s, 80s kind of era. I personally.
While thinking, I realized that both of my answers were so there's neither of them are good, but there's two different. Okay. There's one highly contextual reason why it's not good, because it is maybe a good idea, but it's whatever. I'll get to it. So one, the bad idea. I was like, what can I do with a slasher? And I was like, what about a slasher movie, right? But the slasher in question is a dinosaur. And then I was like, hang on. The Flintstones wasn't real. There was no crossover between humans and dinosaurs. As fun as an idea as that sounds, if we want to be historically accurate, we can't do that. And then my other one was 1920s America, Lovecraftian horror. And then I realized that Lovecraft County's coming out in a week. So it's not that it's a bad idea, it's that it's literally happening. So,
yeah.
Well.
See, the one that I thought of when I was thinking of it, it's very similar to... like you said, the whole Flintstones dinosaur thing, obviously dinosaurs and humans never coexisted. But it's similar in a sense that it's that far back. Like, do you remember that Far Cry game that was set
Far Cry Primal?
Then?
Primal.
Yeah, that one. Like a horror film set around that time. I mean, it might have been done. I don't know. I've not done any research into the time period or seen any films that do it, but it's not necessarily a horror in the sense that this is like folklore, but it's just the horror of living in that time period. You know what I mean? So like, it would be kind of, I don't know, maybe a family traveling to like a certain, having to move the camp or whatever, and they have to fight off like this other tribe or something like that. Or maybe a member of a tribe gets kidnapped and the main character has to go down into like a cave system or something and fight off other people. I think it would be, the horror would come from it, not necessarily it being scary, but just the aspect of like everything was a threat then.
Yeah, being hunted.
I think that would be like an
not something supernatural, but just everyday dangers of like being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Or eating a shitty plant, or
you could just be
like that.
Yeah, you could just be chilling at like a river, and then a fucking mammoth steps on your face or something. I don't know. But like, you know what I mean? There's stuff like that. I think that would be an interesting time to experience, especially with horror, because there's not many different. I mean, I suppose what was that animated film that was set then? The one with Nick Cage.
Ice Age. Oh.
No, Ice Age. No, the other one, the one.
Have you
with
seen
Nick
that
Cage
baby?
It
is a fucking horror
that's
movie.
That's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's true.
On my way.
It is. But now I can't remember what the film's called. But there's different things. But I think horror would fit into that kind of time period quite well. But it's really difficult when you think about it, like what kind of horror films would work, because half the appeal with horror is people are like, oh, that could be me in that situation. But if you said it in the past, you eliminate that straight away. So it's about finding other creative ways of getting that horror through something that's gone. But yeah, there you go.
What about you, Amelia? You've got so many like spooky aesthetics and stuff.
Well, this is the thing. I was thinking like, what would I do? And to be fair, it's not like you say. It's kind of like this film in era-wise, but it's not. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen there was. I can't remember what it was, but a couple of years ago they re-released Jane Eyre, which is the Bronte novel.
Yeah.
And it's quite a dark novel, to be fair, from the start. But that version uses a lot of like music, but not like the screechy violin music, just like really mellow, like really sad music mixed with like dark visuals. And like there's points in the film, because like obviously the whole idea with Jane Eyre is that she falls in love with this guy who's actually got an insane wife locked upstairs because she just goes insane. And the whole idea is that the wife in the middle of the night will come out and try and kill people, and it's a whole thing. It's a good film and a good story, to be fair. And so like I was like, imagine doing one set in like your Regency era, which is just after King George III, the one who had all that nonsense with America.
Oh boy.
Just after he's been fit to unrule, so Prince Regent has to take over. And like it's that era. You could play with light because you've only got candlelight to work with and daylight. Yeah. And you've got like these kind of spooky scenes with like mist on the moors, and like imagine doing something like that. And then instantly I'm like, yeah, but werewolves are fucking cool as well. Like throw a American werewolf kind of off the moors kind of thing in there. Like I don't know, that era is like Welsh spooky and spoopy, and I'm down for it. But like I can
see that working.
It'd be quite cool because, like you say, the minute you start kind of throwing history into it, like you say, like your more modern horror films, it is very much like, this could be you. Watch out, there could be someone in your mirror. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just nonsense. Whereas I like the idea of for me, a horror film is, like, I don't like horror which is literally, let me show you this guy getting his head stamped in 5 times. That's not for me. For me, that borders on, are you a serial killer because you want to watch someone die? Like, I don't know. It's a whole thing with me. But when I think horror works is when it's telling you a story and just freaking you out and getting you, like you say, to think about it, and it's more of a psychological horror. And it's more like, well, even though you're not from this period, how fucking terrifying would it be if you were? Or like, I just think sometimes, especially with modern horror films, and we've had that quite a lot, where like modern films have just been like, I'm going to throw 1,000 jump scares at you. It's all freaky ghosts, but I think a lot of the time horror, and I think like a lot of 80s horror films are really good because there's story to them, and like I feel like that's what modern horror films have really lacked in the last couple of years, this story element. So like you say with this The Witch and stuff, there's not a lot of story, but it's more about watch this unfold. Like, and I think that to me personally is a good horror film.
Yeah, I agree. Very good.
Fair.
Yeah, there we go. See,
Nice.
not lots of historical movie ideas. So if you're struggling to come up with a script idea, folks,
There you
Put
are.
us in the
You're
chat.
welcome.
It's for a free
Yeah,
one.
as long as you get credit.
So, that was our little discussion on The Witch. What we're going to do now is going to go round in a circle and give any final thoughts we have on the movie and individually give it scores out of 10. We're going to use maths to get an overall score out of 100 and see where it ranks on our list to the best to worst movies of all time. Amelia, kick us off.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Yeah, I feel like I need to stop being a pussy, and I will actually attempt to watch this film, because like I said about the sounds of it, it's just unnerving, and I'll be fine. Watch it during the day, it'll all be alright. But from what I saw and what I researched and the clips I've seen, it seems like a really good film. It does seem really cool. I think we do need kind of more films like this in the horror genre. So for me, I don't want to give it the score that I give everything, but I'm gonna go just solely on the basis that I haven't watched it. It could be higher, but from what I've seen and what I know and what I like about it, it's gonna be a 7.
7. Jacob.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about it before seeing it. Having seen it, I could have... I don't know anything new. It's just out there. It's fine. I went in the mindset thinking of, right, it starts on a 5 out of 10 and we'll give it points for good stuff, take away points for bad stuff. And it didn't really move from 5. Nothing really that incredible happened. Nothing super terrible or boring happened. It was just fine. I was expecting it to be a big twist at the end. Like, I was expecting Thomason to, like, sign away her soul in return of being able to be reunited with her family, but then she'd be the witch at the start. So it was like kidnapping and stealing
it kind
all
of
her family
feels like
members.
I got a similar vibe, and I feel like the finale of the movie is a much more interesting start of a movie.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It was a bit
like you do the pretense, the family all kill each other, and then it's like, okay, now where do we go? Ooh,
yeah,
you know?
Yeah. But it was off podcast, Joe said that it gave him like Midsummer vibes or Hereditary, and those two are much more. I think they do a much better job of being creepy and freaky, intense, without being like a horror film. This one was just a bit kind of empty. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with a 5.
Wait, sorry, you cut off when you said your score.
Oh, 5.
5, cool.
See, all I got was a lagged out. It was.
Okay, yeah.
Joe.
So I mean, yeah, I agree that it's thingy. Like, it's not. I think for me, a lot of where my score comes from, it comes from, like, just knowing how much research you put into writing the script and how much kind of like, it's the time period and stuff. There's not a great deal set kind of in this time period, and I find like colonial times really interesting anyway. I mean, there might be more stuff set in that time period, but like they don't really advertise it in the same way they do over here as they do, I imagine, in America, because it's not really a time period that we ever learn about at any point in any of our history exams ever. So I think for me, a lot of my score comes from like him like mixing horror with this interesting time period that I like. So I just like the whole folklore kind of thing. It's, you know, one of the things with pirates is that I love how you've got like fucking the Kraken and all the, you know, different things about this tale of the sea. It's the same thing, but it's different. It's on land and it's in like spooky woods and stuff like that. So I think that's where I like a lot of it, and he tries to get as much of it in the film as he can. I just appreciate the aesthetic of it. I think like the candlelight and the dark tones and stuff like that. So I'm gonna give it an 8.
8, cool. I did not get on well with this Shining fan fiction. Like I said, I did like the dialogue quirks. That's a strong point. It gave it its own feeling. But I kind of went in with a very similar attitude to you, Jacob. Like straight down the middle to start with, and let's see if what way the weighing scale turns. It's not shot badly, but it's not shot interestingly. Everything's in frame. You know, there's no bad shots, but there's nothing particularly exciting. It's grey, light blue color grade, which is the basic horror color grade. Spooky music that goes. Yep, I've seen this one before. Do you know what I mean?
See,
yeah, it ticks
one
the
of
boxes,
the things I forgot to mention. One of the things I forgot to mention about the music was the guy who made the music. I watched a video and he invented an instrument for this movie.
Well, I didn't hear it.
Why?
Yeah, well, this
Why?
is the thing. Like, it wasn't an instrument. It was just a bunch of different things strapped to a box.
Right.
And he would go ding, and he'd go to make the sounds, and yeah.
You couldn't tell that it was anything.
I'm sure if you go on YouTube, you'll be able to find it. It's like there's a violin string that goes across, and the only reason he invented it so he could do all these things at once instead of just doing it digitally.
Has he heard of like an orchestra?
No, apparently not.
He just doesn't want to
hasn't got any
use,
friends. That's what it is. He doesn't
want to get a computer.
He doesn't want to whack
Just does
open
it
the
into,
Pro
like-
Tools. That's it.
So I probably would have ended this movie neutrally like Jacob and given it a 5, but that goat really made my day, man. I actually burst out laughing at him, just sat there with the kids, just chilling. I don't know what it is. I love that goat. So I'm going to give it a 6. So that gives us an overall score of...
Oh god,
65 out of 100.
Okay.
Whoa, serious? Okay, there's one film we have to compare it to.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say lightning round here. Amelia, The Witch or Spider-Man?
Which
2000,
one?
the first one, Tobey Maguire.
Sam
Raimi. 2001, 2002, whatever it was.
See, this is hard because this is like you say, it's like kind of.
You've watched one of these movies.
Yeah, I know that, but that's what I mean. As much as I love the idea of this film and it's like it's proper spoopy, I'm gonna have to go with the one I've actually seen and will watch again.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunately Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Jacob.
I mean, yeah, Spider-Man without a doubt. It's just
Yeah.
There's nothing more to say on it, really.
Joe.
I don't know, because Spider-Man, I'm going to watch Spider-Man way more than I'm going to watch this. But I'm just kind of on a like historical kick at the minute, so I'm going to pick The Witch just to give it some kind of like credit, you know what I mean?
Fair enough. I would go with Spider-Man, so it doesn't win. So that puts it at number 28, being between Spider-Man and just below it, Castle in the Sky.
I mean, I'd watch this over that again, I think, to be honest.
I don't know. I think I prefer Castle in the Sky.
Same.
Yeah.
That was the same, though. I like the aesthetic of it, but I think I enjoy the aesthetic of this more.
Yeah, but you
Fair.
need to remember
It's
they
purely-
both have pedos in it.
Oh my god!
Oh, that was the Nazi Pirates one, wasn't it?
So that brings us to the most important part of the show, and that's finding what we're going to be watching next time. So what we've been doing for 3 episodes in a row has been American history, and I was trying to have a think, try and keep it relevant, and I've picked an American thing.
Ooh.
I've picked something where history has been involved because the 2 main characters have had to write a history book report before. We started off the year with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. We're just about to have Bill and Ted Face the Music come out. Next week, it's Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
I've not seen that.
All right.
My boys.
All right.
I've not seen that one.
They're
No.
coming back.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Is this the first time we've revisited a franchise?
Possibly.
I think it is, I think it is.
I think it is, yeah. No, I mean, technically, we've done 2 Star Wars films. Technically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
We don't talk about that.
So, thank you very much for watching this episode about The Witch. Let us know what you think of the episode and the movie in the comments down below. Consider giving us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this and you've been watching on the YouTube. If you've been listening to us on your favourite podcasting apps, you can also hit that subscribe button, leave us a rating on iTunes. That's pretty cool. And it's the Outtakes Movie Podcast for both. If you want to watch and listen, that's how it jumps across. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram for show updates and little things like that by searching for The Real Outtakes. And that's the lot. Thanks for watching.
Yep.
See you next time.